This video has been produced to assess the risk that North America could, within just a few decades, undergo intolerable, harsh and freezing conditions. The risk was identified when this community channel published a video that provided an October 2022 update of the status of temperature trends across all the NOAA defined regions of the world. While the globe has been cooling since January 2015 at a linear trend rate of 0.1 degrees Celsius per decade, North America had a much higher linear cooling trend rate of minus 0.71 degrees Celsius per decade, which means that if it continues to decrease at the current rate, the average temperature of North America will decrease by 7.15 degrees over the next century. We immediately acknowledge that a trend is a trend. It is not an unqualified prediction. We also point out, however, that trends are what guide the predictions of climate scientists at the IPCC. But of course, they sensibly qualify their predictions. As an excellent example, in the IPCC 2021 report, The Physical Science Basis, it is stated that global warming is likely to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius between 2030 and 2052 if it continues to increase at the current rate. They are qualifying their prediction with the term likely and with the phrase if it, that is the trend in global temperature, continues to increase at the current rate. So, going back to the North America trend of minus 7.15 degrees Celsius per century if it continues to decrease at its present rate. How best to judge the impact of this? A comparison with past climate changes will give us a wider perspective. This chart shows how the climate has varied from around 130,000 years ago to about 11,500 years ago, with the temperature deltas being measured in degrees Celsius. There was a peak period of temperature at around 125,000 years ago, and a period of much cooler temperature during the last glacial maximum, which ended around 20,000 years ago. The IPCC 2021 report provides an estimate of the high temperature. It says in plainer English that the global temperature during that period, which covered multi-centuries, swung between 0.5 and 1.5 degrees Celsius, higher than the pre-industrial reference period of 1850 to 1900. This overlaps the global temperature of the most recent 10-year period, 2011 to 2020. So our red dotted line can be used as a marker for the approximate current global temperature. And the blue dotted line is a marker for the peak glaciation during the last glacial maximum. So what would be the impact of a 7.15 degrees Celsius fall in temperature across North America? The green dotted line shows this fall would take the temperature to that of the global average temperature at around 11.5 thousand years ago and 14,000 years ago. The following information brings some more perspective on this. At the end of the last glacial maximum, roughly 20 to 21,000 years ago, much of North America was covered by the Laurentide ice sheet. It was approximately 4 kilometers, about 2.5 miles thick, and 13 million square kilometers, 5 million square miles wide. It covered most of Canada and northern parts of the United States. As the Earth warmed into the present Holocene interglacial period, the Laurentide ice sheet began to decline at about 11,600 years ago. So, the ice sheet was only just beginning to decline 11.5 thousand years ago, which is the approximate temperature where North America would be in 1 century if it continues to cool at its current rate. Now, it is not being suggested that an ice sheet could form in just 100 years, but we are pointing out a potentially extreme drop in temperature. We therefore reason that while there is a medium to high risk of glaciation across North America within just 1 century, if the temperature continues to decrease at the current rate, there is a high risk that the temperature decrease across North America could, within just a few decades, bring intolerable, harsh and freezing conditions if it continues to decrease at the current rate. This is quite an alarming conclusion. We therefore decided that this would be an initial risk analysis and further investigation is required. The results of this investigation will be released in December 2022, but for now we can show a few findings to whet your appetite. For the city of Fairbanks in Alaska, there is a temperature linear trend rate of minus 2.28 degrees Celsius per decade since January 2015. For Fort McPherson in Canada, there is a temperature linear trend rate of minus 2.32 degrees Celsius per decade since January 2015. For Bismarck, North Dakota, USA, there is a temperature linear trend rate of minus 1.38 degrees Celsius per decade since January 2015. All those linear trend rates strongly back our initial risk assessment that there is a high risk that the temperature decrease across North America could, within just a few decades, bring intolerable, harsh and freezing conditions if it continues to decrease at the current rate. Our community combines the topics of globalism, nationalism, climate change, health, and the New World Order. If you would like to join our community, you can find us on locals.com/discover. Just enter the New World Order. This link will take you directly to our site.